Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast and one of our new features, the Toolbox Extra. We'll be right back with today's guest, but as always, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. You've heard me say before, these are all companies, they're only companies that I used as an athletic director. They're all great. I really recommend that you use them too. So take a couple minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our Toolbox Extra guest, and then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to our friends at Gipper for their support of the podcast. Go to Gipper.com. Their team is going to have you creating world-class content for your social media channel in seconds. And whether it's a quick social media post to celebrate a big win or an entire newsletter to showcase all the great things your school district is doing, the Gipper team is going to have you up and running in no time. It's professional graphic design made easy. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We also want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards or your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles. I'm telling you, you put one of these units in your gym lobby, your main hallway, it's going to be a magnet for your student athletes, your coaches, parents, sponsors, alumni. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their great products today. We also want to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform, you're going to use it every day, whether it's scheduling, rosters, or results. For me, the athletic clearance and eligibility platform alone is worth the price. Go to homecampus.com to learn how easy it is. That's it, homecampus.com. We also want to say thanks to Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. I'm telling you, it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. It's snapraise.com. We also want to say thanks to Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. My assistant AD, along with thousands of others, got his master's through the Ohio program, and it was a great experience. It's very affordable, just 20 months, totally online. And while he earned his master's, he also completed 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. Check out the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. We'd like to say thank you to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years. When I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, all of our coaches, just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes loved the videos, and our parents loved the streaming, but there's so much more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users. Turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thank you to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their great products in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Check out their products today. We'd also like to say thank you to Hometown. You know, Hometown is changing the game for schools and organizations with their suite of solutions for things like digital ticketing, fee-free fundraising, and athletic website construction. And whether you're an AD, a coach, or a school administrator, Hometown makes it easy for you and your school to save money, to create more time, and also bring your community together. You can find out more at hometown.com. That's hometown.com. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. You know, athletic directors already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a very small group that just wants to complain. Athletic Surveys will connect you to that group so you can hear their concerns, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% of your stakeholders that support your program. And having that type of positive data is incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with a frustrated parent, maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Check them out today. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD podcast and a segment that we've had a lot of fun with. We're starting to call these the Toolbox Extras. Um, we have athletic directors from across the country that have been on the show before come back and kind of share in maybe a more specific area of their expertise. And really excited about today's guest. Randi Viggiano was on the show back in October. Just had a great episode. If you missed it, you need to go back and listen to that. She's the assistant principal and athletic director at Ridgeview High School in my favorite state, my home state, Oregon. Um, does a tremendous job, has a tremendous background as a coach, as a leader, and also as a counselor. And I'm hoping she's going to share a little bit of the counselor's perspective today. Randi Viggiano, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me back. I'm excited to talk about how my worlds collide from the counseling and coaching perspective.
Oh, no, absolutely. You and I were talking. It's a busy time for ADs. Winter sports have pretty much wrapped up. Spring sports are going full speed. I'm just going to step back and say, what do you have for our listeners this week on the Toolbox Extra?
Yeah, thank you so much. When we talked a couple months ago, and just reflecting on my time, so I am a retired now volleyball coach. Since I took my new role as assistant principal and athletic director. And although I am retired, I like to think that I will always be a coach at heart. And that even though I'm now an assistant principal and athletic director, that a counselor is really who I am to my core. And I think those two worlds really mesh well together, especially when we're talking about ways in which we can best support our athletes and create competitive cultures. I think as a coach, it was really important for me, first and foremost, to build relationships with my kids so that they knew that they had me in their corner to support them, to mentor them, and because of that relationship, hold them accountable and push them. I was very fortunate to coach some amazing young women who created a lot of success in the terms of state, places, state championships and things like that. And I really attribute a lot of that to the culture that we created in our teams, a space where kids could show up and be their true selves on a good day or on a bad day. And that they knew that they would never walk out of the gym without me checking in with them. And so I guess when we talk about toolboxes and things to help other coaches, I would say that don't ever underestimate the value of a conversation with a kid. If you feel like something is off, ask about it. If you feel like a kid is not understanding or is struggling to learn a certain skill or technique or scheme that you're trying to run, pull them aside and find a different way to help them, just like great teachers, right? Great coaches are great teachers. And I think just like kids show up into a classroom coming from all different backgrounds, so do our athletes. And so that would be the number one, is just making sure that you really get to know your kids so that you know when something's off and to check in. Secondly, I would say that one of the biggest tools that I think I used in my coaching is writing. All my kids had journals. Sometimes those were prompted. Journal writing when I felt like our team was maybe stuck in a certain spot or not able to move forward. I would give them some question prompts and have them reflect. And they could sometimes I would let them keep those to themselves. It was just a free write to maybe empty out whatever was in their brain, a brain dump. But they always had the ability to leave it in their locker if they wanted myself or my husband or my other assistant coaches to read them. And then there were other times where they knew that they were writing with the intentionality behind sharing this with their team. And so creating that space of vulnerability where, hey, when I'm struggling, this is what I need for my team. When I'm struggling, this is what I need for my coaches. And just as important, this is what I don't need. And so coming to that space of creating that community within your team through, just again, some reflective writing and allowing kids to kind of process what's going on, I think was a vital tool in my coaching career.
Well, the journaling aspect you hear so much about now with athletes, the mental performance and all that. And I see it as an official. We're in the middle of indoor track season right now with colleges and high schools and the elite athletes at both levels. I see them, between their vaults. They're in their journal. They're talking with their coaches. Um, for our listeners right now, mostly ADs and some coaches. Um, Unless things have changed radically since I was an undergrad and even in grad school, counseling, and again, it's a broad umbrella, but counseling is not something that is generally covered in any great detail for an AD or a coach. Now, you're a professional counselor, you're also an AD. What are some things that you do with your coaches
Yeah.
in this area to help them better
Mhm.
handle the challenges of coaching today that maybe some of our listeners could pick up on and use in their work?
Yeah, absolutely. When we talk about those conversations and checking in and reflective writing or reflective conversations, I think those also pertain to an athletic director and coaches, right? Knowing when your coach is off, knowing when your coach may be stuck or having an area of struggle with an individual on a team, maybe a group of individuals. And so I think those tools also come in those conversations and helping my coaches navigate those within their team environment. Sometimes that's me coming in. Sometimes I've come in and done some mindfulness stuff. I've come in and kind of facilitated some team bonding, but also modeling those things, having coaches be experts on something that they do and share out to other coaches. I'm going to ask my baseball coach, who does a lot of mental and mindfulness training with his athletes, share some of the things that he does with our other coaches. And so I think those are things that athletic directors can do, is really just prompt those conversations to help your coaches work through their own problem, right? Not necessarily be the problem solver, but being the listener to help them kind of navigate where they're stuck and how to help themselves kind of work through their own problem.
Again, great advice. Here's here's something that not a lot, but I had a coach once, great coach, did a wonderful job, wonderful human being, but would occasionally, I was going to say frequently, occasionally would say, "Hey, so and so on my team, it was really struggling with XYZ, and we talked about this." And as he was sharing, I was just thinking, probably shouldn't be having this conversation with the kid. We have counselors on campus that are trained in this area. Is there um, is there a way to help prevent for this is the worst word, an inappropriate conversation coming from a point of trying to help,
Right.
other than just telling our coaches, hey, remember, you're a coach, you're not a counselor. I mean, what's your advice on that?
Absolutely. And something that I think I've had to have those conversations with coaches, right? Is again, we want to build trusting relationships with kids. We want them to be able to come share when they're struggling. And we need to know the parameters of our job and the boundaries that we need to maintain, right? My job is to coach you to be your biggest supporter. And part of that support is helping you find the right people to work through certain issues. So that's absolutely something that we talk about, and conversations that I've had to have where when maybe that line was crossed, right? And that's not your role. And I appreciate the fact that you care. And we have trained people that are willing to, are not willing, well, willing, but also are more professionally certified to have those conversations and connect to resources, right? Maybe this isn't just a one-off conversation. Maybe it's that person needs to get into counseling. Maybe there is something deeper that's going on that we need to connect with family over. And that's why we have school counselors. That's why we have administrators, is to really help take in that load. So yeah, that's a great point. I think that's a very important conversation to have with coaches of where that boundary lies, and then how and where to find the correct supports if they cross that. For me personally, a lot of my coaches are out of the building. So I would prefer that those funnel through me, and then I can connect with the kid and connect the kid with the counselor, to make sure that those proper protocols are followed.
Right. So, again, working with your in-house counselors, depending on your school setup. All right, here's a question. Randy, I think we may have talked about this before. I'm much older than you, so completely different generation here. Um, Understanding that I don't know what generation we're in right now, Generation Z or B or whatever it is, but
Double A, I don't know.
our
Yes.
current kids, there is absolutely no question that they're facing additional challenges to
Absolutely.
what I did and maybe even what you did when we were in high school for me 100 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm talking in extremes here, so bear with me. Um, at what point, I'm giving you an easy question here. At what point do we tell the kid in the nicest possible way, or the coach if you're an AD, hey, you got to suck it up. Life is hard. You know, we're here to help, but we need to move on. And again, I'm phrasing that in the most negative way.
That's
Um,
it. Absolutely.
how do we do that with a kid? Kids are strong, coaches are strong. We got to help them. We got to give them the tools. But
Mhm.
how do we get them to? These are my words. I guess be a little tougher.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's one of the things we're talking about at my coaches meeting, my next coaches meeting. So in our athletic department, we spent last year really narrowing down like our three values. I think I might have talked about that in the previous podcast. So character, family, and grit. Because grit is really something that I have noticed that a lot of kids have lost, and both academically, and athletically. And so again, I think that goes back to creating those cultures within your programs that kids are willing and feel comfortable to fail. In this day and age, and I know it's everybody hears it, and I know all the teenagers are rolling their eyes, but social media has changed our children, and they have this instant gratification and instant reward that the struggle is real. And to fail and have to work through and have to push is something that's really difficult for them. And they don't necessarily know how to do it. And so just like we teach how to write a 5 paragraph essay, we have to teach them how to fail. And we have to teach ourselves how to allow them as coaches, how to allow them to fail, and not let that ego get in the way, and then be there to build them back up. And so from an athletic director to coaches, it's how can you create those pockets where kids can be safe to fail and then celebrate the heck out of them when they make even the smallest change. Because I do, there is a time where they've got to be able to push through. And you got to create that environment. For me, it was little things like a drill we did every day, and 6-on-6 competitive drill, but there were goals. We would not move on some days until we met our goals. And it's like, we could do this all practice. Like, I don't really care. We're getting touches. We're playing the game. We're, live play, but we're going to work together and we're going to push through until we succeed. Or creating games at the end of practice, like competitive little small games that, to really focus in their mental aspect of what they were working on when they're tired, when they're struggling. And I think those are things that when we talk about practice planning with our coaches, okay, great. How are we building in that uh, failure and development of grit and how to push through?
Well, I love it. Great answer. Now we're going to wrap this segment up with this question. I'm
Okay.
throwing another grenade at you.
I
Um,
like it.
Coaches and ADs,
Mm-hmm.
they get it. That everything you just said, we're there. We're there to challenge them. We're there to help them, and we're there to pick them up and encourage them when they do stumble, because we understand that's how you get better. Trying it, pushing your limits, failing, getting better.
Mm-hmm.
How how did you, a very successful volleyball coach, very successful, how did you explain that concept to parents who many times they're trying to remove any chance of failure so their precious kid doesn't have to get their feelings hurt. And again, those are my words. How can our ADs and coaches
Mhm.
reach parents in a positive, productive, nurturing way so that they get it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I feel like I deal with that more as an AD than I luckily ever had to as a coach. And again, I think transparent communication is important. I think sometimes parents just need to be heard or they need to understand the process. And so for me as a coach, those were conversations I was having, like talking about the celebrated successes and the things that, yeah, this is what we're really working on. This is how we're trying to develop. And I think it's harder for coaches too when their program may not be successful as wins and losses, right? Because parents are going, well, you're not winning anyway. Why isn't my kid getting a chance? And coaches have to be ready to be able to defend that, and be willing to hear. Well, maybe I need to take a look at some different things. And so, again, I think it goes back to again listening, and having transparent communication of, again, at the end of the day, the coaches get to decide the lineup, who's starting. Those lucky that get to coach track and field, the fastest runner gets to step on the line or the kid that jumps the highest. But I think just being willing to know A, what you're doing, B, what the kid is doing, and be unafraid to have that conversation when it approaches. Because I think that's sometimes where coaches run into it is they don't even know. It's like, well, I don't really know why he's not playing. He's just not as good. Well, that's not a really good answer, right? And so it's also again going back to knowing your kids well enough to know exactly where their strengths are, exactly their areas of growth, and figuring out what may be getting in the way of allowing them to grow. And that goes back again to maybe some writing exercises that we did of, thinking of times in their life where they did fail and how that felt and how it ended, how it started, how it ended, just to kind of understand the mindset of where your kids are coming from and then helping them reframe that. And I know that's counseling, but I think we can all, I think we can all grow in that of, because we're all human. We've all experienced it, right? All of us as coaches, as ADs, whether we're trained counselors or not, we know what it feels like to fail. It sucks. And we also know that it didn't end our whole world, that we were able to persevere. Most of us were also, athletes. And we figured out a way, or we found a coach who drew that out of us. So it's also just drawing on our own experiences and trusting that, because you never know when that may help a kid.
Wow. Great, great stuff. I loved every bit of it. This is Toolbox Extra on steroids. Great stuff. Randy, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit more, and listeners, you got a tremendous resource here. How do they get in touch with Randy Viggiano?
Yeah, absolutely. Email is probably the best way. And so that is my first dot last name. So Randy.Viggiano, two G's. And it's at redmondschools.org. It's on the Ridgeview High School website. Again, that's Ridgeview High School in Oregon. There's a few of those across the country. Yeah, and I'm sure Jake can also share my contact information, to reach out to me. I love to have these kind of conversations. It's my jam. So
All
anytime.
right. Well, again, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to share with our listeners, and all the best
Absolutely.
moving forward. Have a great time at the OADA conference. Not going to make it out this year, typically, or not typically, but that was definitely one of my favorite conferences of all time.
Yeah, I'm already gearing up for the annual golf tournament. So we're going for the gold this year.
All right. Good luck. Okay.
It's a long stretch.
For our listeners, we appreciate you tuning in. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings of every interview to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this segment every week, and just about every day, we try to share stories and best practices from education based athletics. So, Come back and join us again for the next episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. Wow, great stuff. Before we go, as always, please check out our sponsors. They are all great companies. I used them. You should be using them. Let's talk about Gipper. Start creating world-class social media content. Go to Gipper.com. Huddle. I used it as a football coach, and we were a Huddle school. Go to Huddle.com. Find out all the great things they can do. Vital Signs Wall of Fame. You put one of their touchscreen consoles in your gym lobby, it's going to be a magnet, okay, for sponsors, for kids. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Hometown. It's more than ticketing. Go to hometown.com to find out all the things that they can do to help you. Athletic surveys by LifeTrack. If you're not using a survey, you're really missing out. Find out all the support that your stakeholders have for you. It's a tremendous resource, athleticsurveys.com. SnapRaise, fundraising and more. Go to snapraise.com. Home Campus. Literally, it's a platform you're going to use every single day. Homecampus.com. Ohio University's Online Masters in Athletic Administration. Check it out, Ohio University. Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.